1948 WL. This ain't a racing bike. They're usually used on parking patrols, stuff like that. And we picked the 45 because it's probably the most reliable engine ever made, and we just always loved the things. And we wanted to bring it up into what we believe the class had always deserved. We changed, we made our own camshafts for it. There's virtually no speed equipment available for the 35. And we made our own camshafts. We went into dual ports. The way everybody else went was with big pipes and big carburetors. What we found that didn't really do anything at Bonneville, and the records had showed that. So what we were up against at first was an Indian that did 104 miles an hour. But if you take your own bike there, count on 20%. So if your bike does 100, it'll do 80. If it does 120, it'll do 100. So give you a rough idea of what you're going to do.
Oh, because of the elevation?
The elevation, and the air has no density. Like here, normally on a normal day, you'll get about 28, 29.9. There it's 23 or 24. So you're dropping your horsepower immediately by a huge amount. So anyway, we picked that, and it's got an English transmission, and a clutch, and it performed flawlessly, by the way. And worked really good. Our first year we did 108, the second 112, and we did get to 120, but we had a blower on it that year. So the bike holds 5 records, and they still stand. Or 4 records.
4 had 5, 4 still stand.
4 still stand, yeah. The 5th was on an Indian, and it doesn't stand anymore.
Well, the record, the 5th one, you broke it yourself.
Oh yeah, that's right. Okay. Well, the Indian record doesn't stand anymore.
It was a different record.
But it normally aspirated. It did with ordinary gas, no fuel. It did 118 miles an hour on the salt, which was a good thing. That wasn't perfect conditions either, but it was pretty good. That was a 5-mile track, and the bike's very stable. Very good bike to drive. It's a hard bike to drive, but it's as you can see, it's not the most comfortable thing in the world. And you use your hand shifter. Sometimes you see I'm sitting up. That's because I'm using the hand shifter. And you shift out a third at 109 miles an hour. So you're taking your hands off the bars at 109 on the salt, and the salt's like ball bearings. If you've got any wind, the bike will actually start to weather cock, and you'll be doing your speed as you're cocked into the wind, just like an aircraft. Use your body sort of to steer it. You don't steer at that speed, so you just roll along. And it's very reliable. It's never blown anything, never done anything. It starts first kick, which they always find amazing because everybody has these big remote starters that they put on, and they keep screaming, "Start your bike!" And they said, "Don't worry about it, man." If we go out there, we kick it, and it just idles, and it runs like an ordinary 45. So, but the bike's well known out there, and we've got to know Jerry Branch. A lot of you guys will know Branch from the Flowmetrics. And he had mentioned that his KRTT did 149 miles an hour at Daytona, beating the Hondas that year. And we were doing 117, and he was really impressed because he says, "This ain't Daytona, and this ain't pavement, and we're at 6,000 feet." So he was really into the bike. And we also got to meet the first guy that cracked 210 miles an hour on a Sportster in 1970 something. He's a friend of ours. And I said, "Man, you're like a hero to us. You are the guy." And he said, "Geez, thanks, man." And so he looked over the bike and really liked it. So you get to meet your heroes down there, basically. And we really appreciate the support we got from you guys for sure, and from Winnipeg Harley. And that's about it. Anybody got any questions about anything? Or?
I got one here.
Yeah.
What sort of RPM are you turning like at the top end when you're going through the
That's a good question. With this bike, we never tried to get it up into so we were revving for the power. We always tried to get the power down through really fast induction and really trying to draw as much air as we could get in, but also keeping it really fast. If you look at the pipes, they're not that big, so we increased the velocity through the exhaust system to create a blowdown effect, in effect to help almost supercharge the bike. Like as that exhaust is going out, it's all creating a wicked vacuum in there.
Like scavenging, right?
Scavenging, exactly. And the same with the carbs. If you look at the carbs, they aren't huge. They're only 28 millimeter. And actually it had 26s on before. So we used those theories, and they worked out very well. We raised the compression a bit this year, and it really didn't do anything.
So RPM maybe 5
Oh
grand?
yeah, sorry. Yeah, 5 grand. Yeah, that's exactly what it was. If we hit 5 grand, at 47.50 we were doing 117. At 5 grand we would have been around 120, and it had got there. So it will do 120, but we've never averaged 120. So, but it did. It actually did get to our goal, which was 120.
Do you do most of your tuning sort of in Winnipeg here before you leave, or is there a lot of playing with jets?
This one
and
got
this
a
and
little
that?
too. We actually, anybody that knows me knows I'm a pilot. We used to rent. We used to go to the strip in Gimli, and back then you'd never do this. But we used to get like a NOTAM and noticed airman, and we would get this guy to let us run down the airstrip there, and we would take a handheld aircraft radio and do just like a taxi out, and now we're committed to the runway, and now we're exiting the runway, and they would let us do that, and that gave us a real edge the first year. After that, the bike got too fast, and we used to go. The government paved that road there,
Okay.
and there's no entrance in or out except from the Hutterite colonies, and that was the only that would be our spectators. And we'd go early Sunday morning, put a guy with a cell phone at one end, the guy with a cell phone at the other end. And I took the fairing and everything off it, and what was that? It wasn't even a mile, half a mile or something, and it was over 110 miles an hour. When I hit the bridge, it was airborne for about 50 feet. So we decided that was about it for that. It was just getting too stupid. So,
This year was just done with compression testing in the garage.
yeah, it was just ridiculous. Yeah. Anything else?
If I don't mean to dominate
Yeah, no,
that,
go
but
ahead.
you know, if you had, you're talking on the video about that coal operation, right, with the the English bike,
Yeah.
right? If you had access to wind tunnels and dynos and da-da-da type thing, right? Do you think you'd find an extra 5 miles an hour or 10 miles an hour, or do you think you can
I could
fly
put
by
that
the
bike
seat
over
fence?
140 miles an hour. No problem at all. No problem at all. That's an overhead valve. Everything they did to it, I would say that the bike originally, before they touched it, was probably capable of over 120 miles an hour at Bonneville, the way it was when they built the thing. But they went and they made the mistake that everybody does, and they put it on a dyno. And yeah, in England at sea level, with these huge carbs and huge pipes, that thing turned out 48 horsepower, which at the rear wheel.
Yep.
But when they took it to Bonneville, it did 101 miles an hour. That's the best it did. Normally it did 96, 95, around there. So yeah, I think I could get that bike over 140 miles an
They
hour.
get to Bonneville, they don't talk horsepower.
Yeah,
It's just,
it's all whatever you can do on the salt. People will mention what they, claim
Yep.
or whatever, but other than that,
if you look at that bike right now, from the first run Ted made when it was still wet, they were wondering where they're gonna race. If I filled that entire bike up to the brim around those outsides with salt, like snow under the hood of your car, that's what it looked like when it came on. And it was steaming like he'd blown the engine. We thought he'd blown the engine, but it was the salt baking into the interior. So
and
when
it
he got
filled
back
the
to
inside
pits,
of the bike. It was
I
that
worked
soft.
on to move the, we're taking out gobs by hands, and then it had gone in like plaster of Paris and completely cased the engine.
It was
And
starting
I
to
think,
overheat even in that.
Bruce worked 3 hours with a hammer,
Yeah.
and basically chiseled out between the fins.
That's just to run the
There's no
next day.
power
So
wash.
yeah, it was a real sloppy year.
I was
Unbelievable.
down there last year, right, 2013, right,
Yeah.
and like looking at the pictures, right, I
Yeah.
know where the racetrack is, there's like normally no water at all to be
No,
seen, so to speak.
nothing.
It's like a white desert of
Yeah.
salt
The
and
first-
sand
yeah,
type thing. I couldn't
exactly.
believe those pictures.
Exactly. Yeah, we went out and it was just the first day, I think it was, like I said, it was a couple of miles.
Yeah.
And then the next, it was 6 miles of water.
How many times have you experienced the weather conditions like this year?
Never.
Never?
No. Oh, excuse me, no. One year we were driving down, but it dried up this, like, we actually had a downpour. We were just coming to the salt, we'd driven all the way, and all of a sudden there was a downpour that you couldn't see on the interstate. You actually had to pull over. And we got to Bonneville, it was flooded. the next day we came, the water was gone. It actually just soaked it up, and that was one of the best years. Everything was hard as rock. It dried out in a day. So yeah, we had 1 year when it was actually poured like that, but it's a desert. It's not supposed to snow or to rain. Now the guy at the Mexican hotel, he had said, you know, he was getting all ready, and he painted some of the doors and really fixed the place up. And, he said it hadn't rained for 7 months. And
Is
the
that
week
like at Wendover?
yeah, exactly. Yeah, at that it's called the Bonneville Inn, and there's the new section, and it's actually not bad. It's really nice. I thought it was beautiful. And but where Bruce had stayed, it was not so nice. But he did get the drug dealer's room. Yeah. And I'm not kidding. He did. Like the hooker used to go over and do a couple of lines and then come back. Well, that ain't the room to be in, because you know it just never is. And so he got
only
down
one
there.
night. That was good
Yeah,
enough.
well, he got up in the morning. We didn't know he came. And he says, man, he says,
gonna
the
say,
door was hanging
not at
off
my
the
age,
hinges. He says there was bullet holes through the wall. He says, I didn't get much sleep. Yeah,
No, I
I
slept
wouldn't have
when I
either.
opened. I didn't know where I was. These guys were asleep when I showed up, and he told me this place is rustic, but holy shit, this is bad.
But the other room,
No, the other it's just like a regular motel. It was nice. The other room.
and the prices, you can't beat that.
Yep.
You know. But we did find out even that first year, you know, we said, well, how much is it for a night? And the guy says, oh, it's $50. Well, that's good, you know. Well, how much is it for a week? He says, well, 150. Okay. He says, well, give me a week.
If you last that long.
Yeah. And then a month. And then we found out from people, there's a lot of gamblers that live there, and Mexicans that just live there because they work in Wendover. Well, then it's only $250 for the whole month. So, you know, whatever. You know. But it was a good, you know, it was all right. But
So,
yeah.
Do they scrape the track, or is it naturally flat?
They do kind of, like say, kind of roll it, you know, and then scrape it a bit.
Okay.
And they try to, you know, some years you'll be going along and they'll say, like, watch because it can cave, eh? You know, like, you'll be going along and there's potholes, eh? So you have to watch all the time. Like, the biggest thing is when you're coming off the track, they can't make all these exits. They just can't do it. So when you're coming off, you got to slow down to what you feel, but they want you the hell off the track, eh? Because they want to run the guy behind you. And also, like, there's no speedometer on this thing, so I mean, the first year we were out, you know, I was doing like over 100, and I'd cleared the mile, and I thought what I had slowed down quite a bit, eh? And I stood up, or, you know, just went up like this, and ended up, if it wasn't for this, I'd have gone right off the back. Like, I went like this, and I just grabbed something with my hand, and that was it, and then turned off. But a lot of times you'll turn off, and you're doing about, you know, 80, 85, 90 miles an hour when you hit that rough shit, you see. And this thing has a little bit of suspension, as you can see, but not very much. You only get about this much. So you get real beat up, like you get your teeth knocked. It's pretty bad. But this year they had one area where you could kind of go across, where it wasn't bad. It wasn't too bad. Okay. And it was so mushy this year, you didn't get that the real pounding that you would normally get like the other years, because it was just too mushy. But,
Question for you. How many years have you been going down there?
8. Yeah, we've been there 8 times. Yeah. We used to go down in an old 75 van, and then we had Gary's, I don't know what the year that Safari was, but
it's still there.
yeah, it's still there. We sold it to some Mexicans. And, so we figure it's probably going to, there's a place down the road that's got, like, see, on one side you've got Utah, and the other side you've got Nevada. Well, Utah is the land of no fun, and Nevada is the land of everything. So you have, and there's this big, it just looks like a mall, but it says liquor, smoke, and girls. And that's on the Nevada side. So yeah, it's a strange place. It's not a big population. It's only, I would say, there's a lot of casinos. So all the people that work there are Mexican, and that's who run the casinos. Or not run them, work in them. But yeah, it's an interesting place.
Did Rick Jones have his Honda out this year?
Yeah, he did. He's Rick Jones. Oh, there he is. Yeah.
And it stayed together this time, or?
Yeah, it stayed together. It ran like shit, but it stayed together.
Progress.
Progress. Next year.
Yeah, it's too bad we couldn't have got it out you could have done some tuning, it would have been a lot better. But we still had a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Are those valves in here? I've watched that, and look
Yeah.
flathead.
Yeah.
But at one point, it looked like you had these huge, like big block Chevy stainless steel valves.
We did.
And I mean, they must get turned down or something, right, to fit in this thing?
Well,
or-
we machined it to do that, and we
So
believed
what
it.
are the diameter of the intakes on this? Or is
Yeah,
that a
well, I don't
secret?
even remember what they were, but it was, they were pretty big. What we tried, and it did work, I wanted to try a game of smaller valves, like to keep that intake speed up. I'm not sure that that was a great idea. We thought it worked good, it had wicked acceleration. But this year we just couldn't tell, so I don't know. We tried the bigger valves, and what we tried one year was tilting the manifold towards the valves,
Okay.
coming out
Yep.
like this. And that seemed to work. But to do that, I had to take the timer out from where it was, go through the side of the cab chest, run it off the exhaust cam backwards, make a lobe, change the E-gap in the mag, and virtually make the mag run backwards. And then make it in time for both cylinders. And then I put a stock Harley timer in the center where it still had room, and then put them together. So one controls, like this switch controls the coil ignition, this switch controls the magneto ignition. So you've got dual aircraft high altitude plugs. And we use those just because they don't foul. And they don't. Shit, you can, well, yourself. An old radio can sit there and pound over, it's got oil draining. They're sitting in oil when you first start them, and when they'll clear out. Well, if you try a modern motorcycle plug, I mean, if you even get it a little rich, it's done, Whereas this thing would fire in anything. So I used those, and it also, with this, the shielding kept the salt out, and it also, for the altitude now, it was good for that. And the heat range just happened to be pretty much where we needed it anyway. They were pretty cold plug. So they worked pretty
I thought
good.
the best part of that was Mr. Harley, the first guy to do 200 plus miles on the Harley. Like, guy's like 75 years old. He's the guest speaker that night. And his question is, what are those spark plugs and what are they doing? And then Ted gave him the whole radial, they don't foul.
Yeah, but
That was great.
yeah, it worked out well. Yeah, it's going along. But I guess it'll just sit now. Yeah, go ahead.
Just for steering, is there any dampener on it or anything?
Yeah,
Or
if
is
you
it
want to look, there's two here, and they're adjustable like here, just that reach under, and you can go this way, and you can get it to where you can barely move the thing, or you can take them right off, and then they're very easy. And that makes a big difference on some, especially if you're having when the track is very hard, the salt tends to ball up on it, and it's just like ball bearings. It's just like if you put salt on your table, that's what you're running over.
I have to point out too that the very first, when you get there the very first day, you have to line up all 296 people.
Oh, really?
4 lanes of tech inspection, so divide that, it's about 60, 70 guys going through each one. Some people were in tech inspection for an hour and a half. It's a big check sheet, team of 4 guys go around. Ted was through in about 12 minutes.
They know the bike, and they've
wow.
they've
And then
seen
you have
it.
to make sure he has to sit on it and twist
But
it,
every year
everything's
the
wired
rules
like an
change
airplane.
too. Like if you look at this bike just at the back here, right here, this used to come right up. Then one year they changed it. We had to cut this one. The next year we went, that was legal, but this needed to be cut out. So then that was cut out. This year there was a guy on a beautiful Triumph Trident, fastest one in the world. He redid the fairing and everything. He came there, he'd cut it down 3 times, and he wasn't a happy guy. Because his fairing cost him a fortune, and beautiful bike too.
Carbon fiber.
And he used to tow it with a Rolls. He still tows it with a Rolls Royce.
Is it a custom tubular frame, like
Yeah.
built from scratch?
Yeah, we built it right from scratch. You have to use mild steel.
Okay.
They don't allow, especially in the Streamliners 4130, because of its tendency to crack, and it's shard. It'll go into shards, and make it dangerous. So you use a mild steel. It's a seamless thing. It's all TIG welded,
Yeah.
and we just built it to, with. We used a Carpenter laser, so it's as true as a laser is. So it's true, and it is very straight frame. It's fun to ride.
So if you win a record, then you have to do a complete tear down?
Yeah,
and
right
CC
there.
it?
We've done that every year. You come there. Of course, this thing, it's so easy. You just take the tank and the side panels off. You pull the head. You just got to pull the heads. Eh? You pull the heads off. A flathead's the easiest one. I mean, we could do it in 15 minutes.
But a Vincent would be a bit of a chore.
And I've seen them doing it. They're sitting there. They got to drop the motor, open it up on the bench. I mean, it's a huge job. Honda 4 is another one. You know, Buells are terrible, and there's a lot of them there. All like that, and you got to do it. You don't want to do it? Too bad.
Do they do a bunch of testing on the fuel as well to make sure? Or do
I just wiped this off, but see, under here you'll still see some around there. Yeah, these little.
Okay, yeah,
They take a piece of tape, put it over there once they put it in. You have to buy their fuel.
got it.
This bike's at a bit of a disadvantage because we don't need high octane fuel. We would be better off with the lowest octane you could get. It actually causes us a performance decrease, not increase.
Something to do with burn rate or
Exactly.
something?
You know, so with the KRTT, the year they won the Daytona with the 750 flathead, they couldn't use the fuel that they had at Daytona. They had to go get pump gas and put it in the thing. It wouldn't run.
Yeah, honest.
Yeah, 4.5 to 1 compression they used on the things. 4.5 to 1, and they were doing 150 miles an hour with a flathead Harley. They beat the Honda 6s.
So it's a big game there. While he's running over getting the driver stuff, I'm wheeling the bike over to the gas line with 280 guys to all buy your gas. It's
And then you've got to
$25
have
per
a
gallon
medical,
gas.
you've got to have all this other crap. Not so much anymore, but in when we first started, you actually had to have a doctor's certificate. Your helmet has to be certain Snell rating. The leather is there. We had to borrow a helmet one year and all this crap. And, you know, but it's for a reason. It's for everybody to stay safe. And that was the idea. But the rules are a little bit frustrating because they get changed just almost every year. So you try to build your bike towards that, then you get there and find out that, holy shit, it doesn't, you know.
What's the thinking on changing the rules? I mean, I can understand changing the rule for safety or
AMA
something,
and
but
FIM
Nobody
get together
knows.
and figure out there has to be an opening
You know, it's a
around the back
mystery
of
to
the
us.
frame, a certain amount of percentage, and it gets changed.
Yeah.
This year was weather. It said we build a bike for a 2.5 mile lead up
Yeah.
for that bike to get to the 5,000
Yeah.
RPM because of weather conditions. There's only a mile lead up. Well, he couldn't get up to speed in a mile.
The bike did exactly what it would have done. Like all I could use in that thing was third gear. So I went third gear, I shifted it right into third at 109, which I always do. At 109 it was there, but that was the end of the mile. That was where I was. So that's as fast as I got going.
Could some of those changes be lobbying by different organizations?
Yeah, probably. I
Probably,
think there's
yeah.
lots
Some
of,
of it, like cutting
Yeah.
stuff out seems kind of arbitrary.
there's a lot of
But
players
somebody
there.
behind that is saying,
Streamline.
no,
That's
you
right,
want
and
to
it probably
do
is.
They get to make a lot
It'd
of
be better for us.
Yeah.
if we-
And you're right. I think that's exactly what it is. It's somebody has designed something, and maybe even with FIM or somebody like that had done it, and now they go, okay, well, we'll do it too because they did, you know. And you get a lot of that there. So and sometimes you'll get guys that are big. You know, some of these people with the money that we're talking, like the English, the Bruff Superior. That literally was over $2 million to do what they did. Well, you know, 30 guys from England. And the bike, what's a Bruff Superior? They only made 5 750 racers, from what I heard.
Yeah.
Yeah. And can you imagine? An ordinary Bruff is what? Like $500,000?
They're getting that now,
Yeah. So a 750 racer, God knows what that's
It was a
worth.
factory racer though.
Yeah, it was a
Yeah.
factory racer, 750 factory
Like
racer.
one of five
So,
or-
and then they paid a guy who designs, I don't know, everything over there, and they paid him to go through to redesign the bike and redo it. I don't know what that cost, but he made his own belt drives and everything, so it was a lot of money. And then they brought it over, and then the team, the 30 people, with a full motorhome, and so
Yeah, it was Mark Upham.
hey?
Was it Mark Upham? He's the Bruff.
Yeah.
Right.
And anyway, yeah, okay.
He was
Two of the 30 came
Yeah,
back this year.
okay, that's good. But anyway, they
Coming
spend
back
a
with the
million.
Rock next year. That's the room.
So yeah, you could get guys lobbying with that kind of money. I'm sure you could get guys to change, you know, some stuff. You
It's
know.
funny, one of the British magazines said they're coming over with the Bruff to race to beat some Harley that has the record. How about a
What they didn't
flathead
mention
Sounds
was
like
that it was a
English.
WL. Eh? Everybody wanted, you know, everybody has, okay, it's a 750 Harley. What's it going to be? Well, everybody would assume that it would be a
XR.
WR or a KRTT, but it isn't. Because the KRTT won't do that at Bonneville. It'll only do it at sea level.
That's the marvel.
So for WL, it did achieve 120 miles an hour. That was our goal. So now it can sit in Ross's museum there, and it's deserved its rest. But,
3 square miles
hey?
a turn.
Are you gonna try all again in a year or two?
not this one, but the guy asked me, "You coming back?" And he says, "Well, you're never coming back." I says, "Well, never's a long time. I don't think so." So I think, yeah, I might. What I'd like to do is now a friend of ours from Sodium Distortion, they broke a new thing out there, and what they do, they would take this bike and they would make it 12 feet long, and you'd lay on it, but the bike would only be this high, and that makes
Funnel area then.
exactly. It makes unbelievable. They went out there the first year with a 1200 Sportster, right? The record was 120, something like that. They did 149. While everybody just went, what can we do to beat that? Nothing. Because you can't get enough power to beat it, unless you use fuel. I'm talking gas here, right? And so now everybody's going that way. And actually, I was just talking to John here, is that there's a guy with a BSA came from Nova Scotia, and he made a beautiful 500 that's about this high. The fairing, what you're doing is you're actually completing the body by putting yourself in it, and that gets around the streamliner rule. And he did that and did 140 something miles per hour on fuel, which is unbelievable. The best I've ever seen there on a 500 single was 105 on a Gold Star, and it didn't make a return run. So that's good stuff. So that's what I wouldn't mind doing. And I still got, like I've got that Harley or the Norton with the Harley motor in it, so I still got a motor. So I don't know. But I wouldn't, I would make a frame and, like I say, make the whole thing, but a definite where your body fit into it. And with that, I think you could get to 150.
They haven't asked you, Ted, but some people may not realize that when you're at Bonneville and you make that run, and let's say it is 117, you'd have to have a run of better than 117. Then you go to an impound, where you get priority over the other 296 because you're going to get a run. But you have to have a return run in the opposite direction in the same day. It used to be within 2 hours. They changed that rule. Now it's the same day, and then those 2 runs get divided by 2. That's your record. You can do 100 miles an hour. If you don't make that second run, you've got nothing.
There's another example. Like before, they would give us a run within 2 hours. Now you got to wait the rest of the day. Well, conditions can be, when we did 117, we were against the wind this way and against the wind by the time we went back. So we, it was just, that was the odds. So sometimes you just can't do it. But it worked out anyway.
Any more questions, gang?
Well, Ted, you were talking about people you met down there, the guy that used to be in charge of Harley's racing department.
Yeah, that was O'Brien.
O'Brien.
This guy worked with O'Brien, yeah. He wasn't O'Brien. Like, I haven't met him. I'd sure like to. But he worked with O'Brien, yeah, exactly. So he was like, wow, it was just like, we were just speechless. And that guy was just such a nice guy. He sat back and talked to us and came up, and he loved the bike, and he just talked to us we talked for hours, like we're sitting there waiting to go, and he was doing tuning for a buddy of mine, Jim, and he was doing his Sportster, and that was an Evo Sportster, but they were up to 180 miles an hour on pavement, though. They hadn't done it on Bonneville. There's a guy has somebody down east is using a old aircraft runway. It's 5 miles.
Maine. It's in Maine someplace.
In Maine, right. And it's AMA sanctioned. No,
it's not AMA
sanctioned.
They're getting records, but they're not sanctioned.
Yeah, they're not sanctioned by AMA, but it's an absolutely perfect course. It's sea level, and it's pavement, and it's 5 miles. So man, that would be... It's
an old B-52 bomber runway, so it's 5 to 7 miles long, so it's perfect for racetracks.
That's right. So
we should take us thing down there for one more shot at it on that, just to see what it was doing.
Well, yeah, for us.
We talked about it in the car for about 3 hours.
That's the only thing about going to Bonneville.
Conditions.
Yeah.
The conditions
Well, the
are always
driving
good
down
for
there
Spain
too,
track.
it's a long drive, man. Like, then the old 75 van, you know, that was okay. And then we had the Freightliner. That was fun, because you're up there and you're fooling around. It was great. Eh? And I always had a dream of driving a semi through the desert, so that was a lot of fun. But in a car, we got wicked mileage. With John's trailer, it was, what did we get? It was like 35 miles or...
Well, we were getting in the 30s.
Yeah, in the 30s.
In a Buick
So it was,
trailer.
it cost nothing to go down there. You know, it was absolutely, normally for us to go down there, it was $1,200. You know, this year it was like 400. What?
No, 600.
Or, yeah, there and
Three-
back. Yes, but no,
325 each
three
way.
one way. I'm saying. Yeah. So it was really cheap this year.
Question, Chaz?
I noticed in the ferry, your cutouts for your legs coming through is very short.
Yeah,
You must not have a very wide turning radius.
it has no turning radius. Very little. Like you can see, it goes there to there. That's it.
I noticed there was pretty good damper in there, so.
Yeah, well, they're off now. You can crank them right down to where you can barely move it.
And it fills the steering up with air as well to his satisfaction with the salt conditions.
But yeah, it's very, it's really stable with those locked in. Depends on the conditions. Some years you don't need it, some years you need more, some years you need less.
There's two black caps on top are air receptors for pumping with a hand pump, changing the air pressure.
Yeah, I wish we could start it for you in here, but hey, that would be good.
Well, that's great.
You want to know if you can start it?
No, it will start. It's going to be awful loud.
Very nice.
No,
I don't want to
heard
get the poor guy in
stuff
trouble.
shake. It really shakes this place. I tell you. It's pretty loud.
Windows will fall off.
Yeah, you'd be loud.
Not the windows like.
Too, there might be some scarred boxes for sale. All right.
All right.
Thanks very much, Ted. Let's give him a round of applause.